Good morning, guys. Welcome to Liverpool FC Journal. I'm Owen James. This is your morning podcast, guys. We're coming at you on Friday, the 14th of November. Guys, I don't know about you, but here it's absolutely shocking. The weather is disgusting. It's absolutely tipping it down. It's a horrible day. It's international break as well. There's no football on. Well, there's no proper football on Saturday. Red's not back till the 22nd of November against Forest at Anfield. It doesn't get more depressing than that, does it? You know, you look outside this morning and it's tipping it down with rain. It's a Friday. You know it's Saturday tomorrow, but you're not going the match or watching the match or whatever because there's no proper football on, and it's not until 22nd of November. We've got another 8 days to wait before. It's depressing, isn't it? Very, very depressing. You know, I think, and also the fact that we're coming off the back of a loss to Manchester City, you know, the anxiousness to get back in there, to get back on the bike, so as to speak, and try and win a game, and try and get back to winning ways. Awful lot of questions for Arne Slot and the boys. More for Arne, I suppose, you know, going into the rest of the season, you know. I suppose one thing we've got to look at is that the next run of fixtures is a little bit easier per se than the ones we've just had. But look, it is what it is, guys. You know, there's no easy games in the Premier League, is there? Absolutely no easy games in the Premier League whatsoever. Morning, Sam. How you doing, buddy? Good to see you. Sam says Ekitike's goal for France last night was amazing. Yeah, I don't know if anyone's seen Hugo Ekitike's goal for France last night. It was going off, buddy. It was a fantastic goal. Yeah, France v Ukraine, guys. If you haven't seen it, I'd go seriously. Go check it out. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube somewhere. Picks up the ball on the halfway line, runs with the ball, nice little 1-2 on the edge of the area, gets it back, slots it past the goalkeeper. Absolute quality goal from a very, very good footballer. And look, I think one thing you can say about Hugo Ekitike is that he has really taken his opportunity since he's come to the club, hasn't he? He's doing very, very well. He's the one player, one of the signings that you can kind of say, yeah, that's worked out. That has really genuinely worked out. He just looks a top player. I mean, if you look at his stats from this season so far, Hugo's got 10 matches, 3 goals, 2 assists, so 5 goal contributions in 10 in the Premier League, a goal in the Champions League as well, a goal in the EFL Cup as well, a goal in the Community Shield. So, you know, in terms of him, it's 16 games and 6 goals, 2 assists, 8 goal contributions in 16, which is, you know, 1 in 2. That's not bad, is it? That is not bad at all. And considering he hasn't started even every single game, you've got to say he's doing very well. And I've got to say I'm massively impressed with Hugo Ekitike. I'm a massive Hugo Ekitike fan. I personally think he's a better player than Alexander Isak. I think he offers a lot more than Isak does. I suppose of his position flexibility is excellent. And one of the things I suppose you can say about Hugo Ekitike is, I'll be honest, he does remind me of a certain other Frenchman that played the game a few years ago. I've heard another Frenchman who had a very awesome reputation within the Premier League. That one, Mr. Thierry Henry. Now, I know he played for the most deluded fan base and the most classless club in England, in Arsenal. But I suppose they had a bit more class then. Just recently they've kind of lost it. But he does remind me an awful lot of sort of Henry, in the way that he holds himself, in the way that he runs with the ball, in the way that he likes to come from the left, very Henry-esque. Yeah, Ekitike, could he be the new Thierry Henry? Could he be that? You know, I'm serious, lads. If he is half the player that Thierry Henry was, he is going to be one hell of a player for Liverpool and for France as well to some degree. So, you know, a quality player. Really pleased with that bit of business. I'm going to repeat my unpopular opinion. I've got a very unpopular opinion. My unpopular opinion is that we didn't need Alexander Isak, that we should have kept our powder dry. We should have saved the money, bought a winger and a centre-back and a backup striker, and let Ekitike be the main man this season. Like I said, I'm really impressed with the guy. I think he's absolute quality. What we're going to talk about this morning? Well, we're going to talk a little bit about some news that Paul Gorst has revealed in the Echo. Nice to see Mr. Gorst actually writing something sensible for a change. We're going to talk a little bit about Mo Salah as well. Got a bit of Mo Salah for you too, with sort of discussions around his form and whether he should be benched or not. We're also going to look at that January transfer window that's upcoming. You know, it's coming faster than you think it's going to come. I think, 6 weeks away from January. And some worrying comments from Lewis Steele and Fabrizio Romano ahead of that transfer window on Liverpool FC, guys. But just a reminder, this is the Liverpool FC Journal. We are an all-new Liverpool independent fan channel. We're doing all right. Started off this week. First video was Sunday before the Man City game. Not great time to record, is it, after the Man City? Then obviously we brought our video after the Man City game. So we've been going for nearly a week now. We're up to 17 subs. Would like it to be a bit higher. Would like to get to a very ambitious target of 50 by the end into the international break, guys. If you can help out by smashing that sub, that would be very, very much appreciated. But let's start off, shall we? We're talking a little bit about something that Paul Gorst has been writing in the Echo. Now, Paul Gorst in the Echo has written about the fact that in pre-season, Liverpool worked heavily on set pieces and they worked heavily on long throws. And they had, obviously, people trying out this long throw. So they had the likes of Conor Bradley, Milos Kerkez, Wataru Endo, and even Ryan Gravenberch all taking turns hurling the ball into the penalty area. As a slot kind of looked for new approaches, new ways to attack the opposition. Now, we've kind of seen a very sort of set-piece oriented Premier League this season, haven't we? You know, a very sort of set-piece focused Premier League that a lot of goals have come from set pieces this season in the EPL. And it's kind of like, it's kind of like, to me, it's a flashback to the early 2000s in the kind of the way that it's gone this season. It really has. It really has become a big focus. I mean, you look at Arsenal, and you look at how they've done, and they're very much focused on on that set piece way of getting goals from corners and throw-ins, and obviously we came a cropper. We came a cropper, didn't we, in the game against Brentford when they scored from that long throw as well after we'd allegedly been defending them. Now, if you look at the set pieces this season, it's the highest share. For example, let me give you some examples, some stats on this. It's the highest share of corner goals in Premier League history at this moment in time. The three previous seasons that are high numbers of goals scored from set pieces were in 2010-2011 when 1,063 goals were scored in total, and 151 of those came from corners. That's 14.2% of goals came from corners. In 94-95 there was 169 corner goals, which is 14.1%. And in 22-23 there were 151 corner goals, which represented 13.9%. This season already there have been 45 from the total of 245 goals scored from corners. That is a set piece percentage of 18.7%. The percentage of set piece goals scored in the Premier League this season is over a quarter of the goals that have been scored in the Premier League this season have come from set pieces. That is corners, free kicks and throw-ins, doesn't include penalties. 27.8% of all Premier League goals have come from set pieces. The average in the Premier League is 21.6% in Premier League history. So, it's more than dwarfed by that. If you look at the big five European leagues as well, Arsenal have scored 37 goals from corners since the start of 23-24, which is more than 11 more than the nearest opposition, which is Borussia Mönchengladbach. The next one after that is Inter Milan at 25. So, you can see that this is really growing massively. In terms of goals scored from corners, you look at these statistics, 25-26, 18.7%. Back last season, it was 12.1%. So we've already got a 6.6% growth in goals coming from corners this season. It is 1.1% more than the Bundesliga, 2.7% more than Serie A, 4% more than 5%, sorry, more than La Liga, and 6.1% more than Ligue 1. So you can see that, massively, that this is a huge feature of the Premier League this season. Now, obviously, Liverpool took a decision in the off-season to try this, and then we kind of moved away from it and ditched it and stopped doing it. And I think, Jamie Carragher spoke, didn't he, about the signings, saying that he feels that the signings that we made were more trying to play in a progressive attacking way, more like the tiki-taka of Guardiola of old, more like, the possession, the fast break, the fast attack football of old, rather than the modern era of football. And I think Jamie Carragher said, this is what he said, he was talking on the Overlap podcast, and he says, I do think Liverpool, the people buying the players and the manager, tried to make a team that last season won the league, but in slot size he wanted to be more sexy, with more goals, more entertaining. He's always speaking about Paris Saint-Germain. He loves Pep. You hear him speaking about Pep before the game. He's his hero. So he's trying to make his team over here and go that way. The league's gone in the opposite direction. It's gone more powerful, more set pieces, more long throws. And Jamie says, like I did a few moments ago, it's a throwback to the 2000s. So, it is really something that Liverpool have perhaps made a mistake in doing. They've gone a bit sort of lighter weight. They've gone a bit faster. Whereas if you look at the other teams in the Premier League, in particular, I suppose Arsenal, they've gone big, physical, strong, powerful, set-piece based football, which is the way we were back, say, 20, 25 years ago. Now, the more alarming stat that I read this morning was this one. Set-piece goals conceded in the 25-26 Premier League. Okay, so this is the set-piece goals conceded. This excludes penalties, so it does not include penalties. Okay, so it is purely down to corners, free kicks, and throw-ins. Now, there's a really, for me, worrying stat within this set of this graphic that I'm going to show you in a minute about the number of set-piece goals that have been scored this season. Now, this source for this information comes from Opta, the stats guys, so we know it's pretty reliable. And we know this season there's certain teams obviously that struggled more than other teams. But this is the stat, guys. Just have a little look at this stat for me. Let me just pull this up on the screen for you. This is the current stat of Premier League goals conceded from set pieces. Here you go, look. So set piece goals conceded 25-26 Premier League. West Ham have conceded 9, Forest 7, Liverpool 6, Leeds 6. So only West Ham and Forest are worse than us on conceding goals from set pieces. Now, if you do a bit of research into that and look at it, if you look at the table as it stands today on the 14th of November, Forest sits second off bottom, West Ham sit third off bottom, Leeds United, who you see there, sit fifth off bottom. I mean, so that is not auspicious company to be keeping, is it? Yes, we sit eighth, but the fact that we are down there in terms of set-piece goals conceded with West Ham, with Forest and with Leeds is a slightly worrying statistic for Liverpool to deal with. It is a very, very concerning statistic for me. And something that badly needs to be addressed. Look, why are we conceding so many set-piece goals? I think, personally speaking, our defending from set pieces is not good enough. I don't think there's enough strength in there. I don't think the centre-backs show enough fight, enough passion, enough get stuck in, enough kick, push, shove, battle. I think, I was watching Anfield Agenda the other day, and Craig says, it's almost like our centre-halves don't want to get mud on their shorts. And I agree with him. They don't. They'd rather, do the pretty stuff. They don't want to do the horrible, nasty, dirty stuff, do they? So, for me, there is a real drop-off there, and it's something that does need to be addressed. Now, if you go back to, for example, some of the goals we concede aerially as well. I mean, look at the one that we conceded to Manchester City on Sunday, the Erling Haaland goal. Konate is more interested in wrestling and messing around, and then he underjumps the ball. I mean, Konate obviously has been shit this year, but, again, it's just poor defending. And set pieces in particular now are causing us a massive amount of concern. And it definitely is something that Liverpool must work on, for me, in training going forward, and obviously, I think in terms of recruitment, when we're looking at buying players, I think we need to buy some more stronger, powerful, more physical players to really match up with opposition teams, because that statistic that I shared with you, this statistic here is worrying, to be down there with the likes of West Ham, Forest and Leeds in terms of goals conceded from set pieces, when they are bottom of the league teams and teams in danger of being relegated this season. That does not look good. And especially if you consider how much money realistically is in that back line. I mean, I know we only bought Kirkes and Frimpong this summer, but you've still got defenders there that are worth vast sums of money. Virgil van Dijk would be worth a massive sum of money if he was sold. Konate would be if he was sold. Kirkes was over 40 mil. You got 25 to 30 mil, I think it was, for Frimpong. Bradley would be a 20, 30 million pound plus player. Robbo perhaps around 10 million pounds now, obviously given his age. But you've still got a back four there that are worth a vast sum of money, who seem to have an inability to defend. And even going from beyond that, because everyone's responsibility to defend, you look at the midfielders, in Sobo, Maka, Wirtz, Curtis Jones, Ryan Gravenberch, you've got a lot of talent there. And, with the best one in the world, Grav and Sobo and Konate and Van Dijk are hardly little guys, are they? They're not tiny guys. Virgil and Konate and Sobo, they're physical guys. We shouldn't be certainly conceding the chances that we are and the goals that we are from set pieces with that. And I think it's a mistake that Liverpool really moved away from that work on set pieces at the start of the season. I think it is a big error that Arne Slot makes, and perhaps something that he needs to return to and have a look at, hopefully during this international break and going forward across the season, because it's a concerning statistic. It is a very concerning statistic. Right, let's talk a little bit of Mo Salah, shall we? He has not been the best this season. His performances have not been great this season, have they? He has not been himself. He really genuinely hasn't. You look at his stats this season. He still scored 4 goals in 11, 2 assists, 6 goal contributions in 11, which on the face of it isn't too bad. Champions League, 2 goal contributions in 4, nothing in the Community Shield. But it's certainly not to the levels or what we've seen previously from Mo. And you can look at stats, you can look at all that, but realistically, at the end of the day, you've got to look at it in terms of the eye test. Has he passed the eye test? How has he performed? He hasn't. He certainly hasn't. And it's something we need to look at. We do need to look at this. We do need to look at how we, use him going forward. And honestly, I look at this, and I think, I'll be honest, we need to kind of lessen his use in the team. We need to kind of look at the way he's being used and kind of admit that he isn't the player that he was. And, we've got other players there who I believe could have a much bigger impact if they were more a focal point of this team. Now, for me, moving forward, I believe there is a need to kind of build around those players that we brought in this summer to try and build for the future. Mo's not going to be here in 12, 18 months, 2 years' time. There's a chance that Mo could leave in the summer to go to Saudi. There's a chance that at the end of his 2-year deal that he's got, that he leaves anyway. But, even realistically looking ahead to next season, if the drop-off has been this season, what's going to happen next season? And with the best will in the world, and Mo's like, please don't think I'm sitting here slagging Mo. Mo's a great player. But, Mo is not the same player he was, and you can't keep picking someone based on reputation. You can't keep picking someone on what they did last season or the season before that. You've got to pick players, for me, on form. And I don't care who you are. If you're Mo Salah, Virgil van Dijk, Hugo Ekitike, Florian Wirtz, Dom Szoboszlai, Conor Bradley, whoever you are, if you're not performing, then to me, you shouldn't be playing. An old adage was that when I was growing up, and like I said on the previous videos, I never played to the high standards that Mo does or Virgil does or any of those people do. But what I will say is this, is I was always taught, if you play well, you'll keep the shirt. If you don't play well, you don't keep the shirt. That was always the way we looked at it. And to me, this season, we haven't seen that. We've seen some players getting picked no matter how bad they've been, no matter how poor they've been. You know, and to me, this season, Mo Salah has not been good. And to me, when he hasn't played, we've looked a little bit more balanced. We've looked a little bit better. And I think at times Mo has kind of really, been too selfish, not perhaps play for the team as much as he should have done. There's moments in games like the Chelsea game, for example, the Frankfurt game, when I seen him cut inside, and rather than play a ball to someone in a much better position to him to take the shot, he takes on the Hollywood shot and misses it. And he's got to be less selfish going forward. He's got to kind of realise that he's not at the level he was last season, and he may never get back to the level he was last season. I read an Echo article the other day, and some of the stuff that they write in that paper is absolute bollocks. I mean, it really genuinely is absolute bollocks that they write. I think, this was the comment from Paul Gorst, for example. Instead of rather simply wielding the axe, the more pertinent question for Slot is how to get his forward line firing with the Egyptian king in the team alongside Isak, Ekitike and Wirtz. Dropping the club's finest marks from the Premier League era feels like it would be a rash overreaction to a difficult couple of months. Stick by him and the goals will inevitably return again. There are far more concerning problems to address first. Well, yes, there are more concerning problems, like our set piece, inability to defend set pieces. And then Ian Doyle comes out with this, which I honestly, when I read this comment from Ian Doyle, I honestly thought, you absolute idiot. There's very good reason Liverpool don't need to drop Mohamed Salah. They'll soon have a lengthy period when they'll find out what life will be like without the Egyptian. So just because he's, going away to AFCON, we don't drop him because we'll find out what it's like to play without him when he's gone to AFCON. I mean, to me, just seems like an absolutely stupid comment. It really does. And Mark Jones seems to be going down the same line as well. Why take Mo Salah out of your team when you don't need to, especially when there's a period coming up when you'll have no choice but to leave him out? I don't get it. I genuinely don't see that as an argument. Just because Salah's going to go off to AFCON, and we'll find out during AFCON what life is like without Salah, we don't drop him because of that reason. So basically that means he could play shit for the next 5-6 games or until he goes to AFCON. And it doesn't really matter because he shouldn't be dropped because he's going to go to AFCON and we'll find out what life's going to be like. Well, you can't afford to carry a player in your team. And I get that argument that Mo can do in one moment what no one else can do, but he hasn't done it this season. Okay, the Brentford moment maybe, but other than that, he hasn't done it. Manchester City, again, there was a chance where he could have squared the ball. I can't remember who it was to, but again, he could have squared the ball to a better placed opponent. He doesn't. He's selfish. Look, I love Mo. Mo's a great player. Mo was a great player. He isn't this season. He's dropped off. And to me, there are options there to change the shape, to change the way we play. Now, is there a direct like-for-like replacement for Mo Salah? I suppose that is one argument. And look, no, there isn't. There isn't a direct like-for-like replacement for Mo Salah. Jeremy Frimpong is certainly not a replacement for Mo Salah. I don't think Jeremy Frimpong is a right winger. I don't think he's good enough to play right wing. Chiesa, I think, is better coming from the left and cutting in on his right foot. Ekitike, again, better coming from the left, cutting on his right foot. Same with Rio and Gamoa. So, I do think at the moment there are a shortage of options, but there are ways you could change the team and change the formation to negate Mo's absence. So I think there is ways around that, but you can't just keep picking a player based on what he did last season or the season before that or his reputation. To me, there's got to be an accountability there, because what message does it send to the rest of the squad if you are saying you can play as badly as you want and be as selfish as you want, but you know what? It doesn't matter because you'll still play. And I don't get it. As a football fan, as a coach, yes, I've never coached to the same level as Arne Slot. I get that. I don't understand it. I genuinely don't understand it. Why you would play a player who is so badly out of form, who is so far off the pace, And what gets me is, I kind of know they were a rubbish team, but when we played Frankfurt and he didn't play, we had a team that looked so much better balanced. We had a team that looked so much more attacking, quicker, better, stronger, just all round a finer team. And it looked a lot better. Then he comes back into the team and we play badly again. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. Also, you look at the Conor Bradley, for example, on Sunday. People have absolutely slaughtered Conor for his performance on Sunday, and wrongly so. If you look at the actual performance and actually watch the performance, the number of times Conor gets left with two players to mark because Mo hasn't bothered tracking back, isn't interested in tracking back, doesn't want to help out his young Northern Ireland colleague. He just wants to do the glory boy work. He relies on Dom coming across, Grav coming across, Canate made a balls up of it. There's times when Conor's got two on him, and Conor needs to be protected to some degree. You need a right winger who is willing to work back, and if Mo isn't willing to work back, then you've got to kind of question his value to the team. And yes, in previous seasons when he's scored the goals he has and the assists, perhaps it hasn't mattered as much. But this season, when we're not scoring the goals, where he's not creating the goals that he did in past seasons, can you realistically justify carrying a player who is contributing very, very little? And that's like I said, when I read that article by Gorst, Doyle and Jones, I just read it and I actually thought, lads, you are talking out the tops of your head. Well, actually, you're not. You're being brown noses to the club. That's what you're being. You're being Arna's brown nose because you don't want to upset anybody, because you don't want to risk your press access, because you don't want to upset anybody. That's why you're talking like that. You're actually talking like what we call in the business a happy clapper, which is what Paul Gorsty and Doyle and Mark Jones have become. They're happy clappers. So, I think there has to be an accountability going forward. There must be an accountability going forward. And if Arne Slot hasn't got the balls to do that, then maybe you question his ability to manage the team. I'll tell you this for free. Jurgen Klopp would not be suffering this. Jurgen Klopp would have benched Salah before now. I know he would have done, because Klopp wasn't prepared to carry passengers. Klopp wasn't prepared to have people who didn't pull their weight. And if you weren't performing, Jurgen would have you out of the team. And I honestly believe that Jurgen would have pulled Mo out of the team before now. Genuinely do believe he would have pulled him out of the team by now. It's worrying, isn't it? It is really concerning for me. And look, I would love Mo to get back to the levels that he was. I'd love Mo to get back to his goal scoring, because if he does, he's playing well, then we tend to play well. And look, like I said, I'd love him to get back to that, but this moment in time, he is nowhere near that. He is hell and gone from that. And yes, I get that, we'll have that 6-week period when he's off with AFCON, and he'll be away for those games, and obviously, we'll be without him. But but why do we have to wait till then? If he isn't performing now, this is when you take him out. You don't wait till AFCON. And then it does raise an interesting question. If when he's off at AFCON, that we suddenly we find a shape, we find a way to play. If someone, if people are clicking and the forward line is clicking, does he come straight back into the team when he comes back from AFCON? Well, probably he does, which then could upset the team and set us back again. I mean, if you look at the games that we've got during his period away for AFCON, it's Wolves at home, Leeds at home, Fulham away, Arsenal away, which is a massive one, Burnley at home. I think he'll be back by the Marseille Champions League game. But let's say, for example, in that run of 5 fixtures, if we were to go and get 5 wins and play good football and look like a really good team, does he come straight back in? I would say he probably does, because I'd say that Slot hasn't got the balls to stand up to him. If we would say go to Arsenal on the 8th of January, play good football, outplay them and win that game without Salah, and then follow that up, obviously, with a domineering performance against Burnley on the 17th, and then he comes back, why should he walk back into the team? Just because he's Mo Salah? Nobody should be able to walk back into a team. Their performances should justify it. And I'll repeat what I've said on numerous occasions, and I think within the fan base now, there are a number of people who seem to have lost this sense of perspective, because the modern era is very much an era of egos. It's an era of hero ball, isn't it? It's an era of, cult status of certain individuals. And to some people, I believe that Liverpool has become Salah FC. It's not. It's Liverpool FC. Nobody is bigger than this club. I mean, especially this club. No one is bigger than this club. Mo Salah isn't bigger than this club. Even the greatest player ever to play for Liverpool, which was not Mo Salah, which was Kenny Dalglish, is not bigger than this club. Ian Rush, another player who I rate higher than Salah, not bigger than this club. No one is bigger than the club. Nobody. And nobody should walk back into a team, no matter what. My honest opinion, guys, for what it's worth, is at this moment in time, he isn't worth a place in the team. Until his performances improve, he shouldn't be playing. You shouldn't just get a game because of who you were or what your name is. It should be based solely on your abilities and your talents and how you're performing at that moment in time for me. Guys, thank you obviously for watching the Liverpool FC Journal. Guys, obviously if you haven't caught the pod live, please obviously come and join us for the lives. Look out for the scheduling. Best way to make sure you never miss out is to smash a sub, ring the notification bell, and then you won't miss out on the content. I am different to a lot of podcasters in that I always like to get the audience who are commenting involved. I admire I'm very big in which I'm admirer of Craig of Anfield Agenda. Craig does that. To me, the fan community are as important, are more important than me. I'm the one who sat behind the camera and the mic spouting shit for an hour or 40 minutes, 45 minutes or 20 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever. You're the ones out there. You're the fans. You're the ones, the real, the top people out there, the ones that bring the sense of reality to this. And that's why I want to get you involved. So please obviously get involved with the chat. Right, look, let's move on to the January transfer window. This was a worrying comment for me that Fabrizio Romano has made and was further backed up to some degree as well by what was said by Lewis Steele in January, which is this. I think Liverpool is going to be very quiet in the January window. In the summer, it can be different. Interesting comment. Now, Lewis Steele, said very similar. He said that basically it was trending towards a quiet January transfer window. Now, look, a quiet January transfer window might mean something like, for example, that we don't buy a lot of players. I think, there's a lot of people have read into this that a quiet window is that we don't sign anybody. I think that's what people have read into this. I don't per se think that necessarily means it's going to be a nobody is coming in. I hope. I really hope. My honest opinion, guys, is if we were to go into the January transfer window and come out of the January transfer window having bought nobody, have made zero signings, I think it would be a huge mistake by the club. Massive mistake by the club. Now, I'm not expecting us to go out and buy 3, 4, 5 players in January. January historically is not a good time to buy players. It really isn't. It is a very, very bad time to buy players in January. It's a seller's market in January because in January, the teams that are selling know you're desperate because they know you're desperate for that position, or you're desperate to stay in the league, or you're desperate to get into the Champions League, or you're desperate to win something. So that's why you're going out and buying. The teams around the middle that have kind of accepted their fate, they're going to be a mid-table team, don't tend to spend a lot of money in January because they know there's a little point because they're not going to go anywhere. It's the teams at the top, the teams at the bottom that go and splash cash. And the teams that then have those players go, well, this player's probably worth about 15, 20 million. But because this team's desperate, I'm going to put another 10 million on top of this, or another 5 million on top of this. So there's the seller's market. So it's not a great time to buy. Morning, Olivia. Hope you're good. Now, look, we've seen all types of names linked with Liverpool over this past few weeks, months, whatever. I mean, I was trying to come up with a little list the other day of players that we've seen linked with Liverpool. Players that have been, sort of mentioned in terms of signings. Now, like some of these are not January, but this is the list I came up with the other day. There's Bastoni, there's Gay, Upamecano, Semenyo, Singo, Vitinha, Rodrigo. I mean, they're just a few of the names that I've seen mentioned. Koudarakis from Wolfsburg was another one that I've seen mentioned. A number of names mentioned. Now, obviously, a lot of those names are centre-backs because I think the media realise that Liverpool have a need at centre-back. The fact that Konate is playing dog shite this season, that Virgil's not getting any younger, that Joe Gomez can't be relied upon, that obviously Giovanni Leone's out for the season. Obviously, we've sold Joel Quansah. We are obviously in a situation where I believe that centre-back is a position of need. I mean, Slot will tell you otherwise. If you talk to Arne Slot, he says, I've got options there. I've got Endo, I've got Grav, I've got Robbo, can all play there. Well, yes, Arne, they can play there, but long-term, they're not a solution. If you have to go, say, for instance, through 2-3 months with Robbo at centre-back or Endo at centre-back, I guarantee you're probably going to concede a lot more goals than you would have if you had a proper centre-back there. And nothing against those players, but I just feel that we need a real, genuine centre-back there. You look at that list of players that have been linked, and I think there's a lot of names on that list that are not realistic for January, if Liverpool were to sign someone in January. Now, the one thing I'm going to say is this. If we don't sign a left winger or a 6 or a right back or a striker in January, then I'm not bothered. Genuinely not bothered. I can see that we've probably got just about enough to get through to the end of the season with Gakpo, Wirtz and Rio, if the manager ever uses him. Chiesa, if the manager ever uses him. Frimpong, Bradley, Gomez, if the manager ever uses him at the right back. Grav, Endo, Maka, Curtis, Sabo in midfield. We've probably got enough to get by. Where I don't think we've got enough to go by, and I think this is a lot down to obviously the injury to Giovanni Leone. If Giovanni was available, then maybe this would be different. But is it centre-back? We are one injury away from being so far up shit creek we can't even, without a paddle, that we can't even see the end of the creek. If one of Virgil or Konate, as bad as he's been this season, were to go down injured, you're then relying on Joe Gomez, who we know you can't rely on first run of games because he's likely to get injured. Now, let's say, for example, worst case nightmare scenario, Virgil gets injured and then Joe Gomez gets injured. You're down to Konate at the back with Robbo or Endo. That fills me with fear. That really fills me with massive amount of fear going forward because you're losing your influence there. You're losing your captain. You're losing your communicator, your organiser in Virgil. You can't rely on Konate. He's not great at organising and running a defence. So you've got a situation there where we do need to sign a centre back. Now, who that centre back is, that's where you sort of start to get into this possibility of who could be available. Now, you look if we've seen Bastoni linked at 88 million. That I think is more an end of the season job. I can't see us spending 88 million. I can't see Inter Milan, who are still who are top of Serie A in contention in the Champions League, selling Alessandro Bastoni to Liverpool, a Champions League contender at this point in the season. It just doesn't happen. Gay, look, as much as if we were to go to Palace with say 20 mil or 15 mil. And say, well, there's 20 mil, take it or leave it for Gay in January. Steve Parish may consider it, but I think that there's a possibility there that Mark Gahey doesn't want to move mid-season from what he's said in the past. So there's a strong chance for me that Gahey finishes the season with Palace. Upamecano is out of contract in the summer. I think he's very much focused on being a Bayern player for the rest of this season. Nico Schlotterbeck. Now, obviously, there's a bit more uncertainty around Nico Schlotterbeck. Obviously, he's still under contract at Borussia Dortmund. He's not going to sign a new contract. He is a player who is interesting Bayern Munich by all accounts. That's who he has got as someone who's after. Now, Nico Schlotterbeck is a very good player, don't get me wrong. He plays exceptionally good football. Now, according to a number of sources this morning, Manchester United, Barcelona and Liverpool all want to sign Schlotterbeck, with Football Talk, Football Fancast, Team Talk and Football Talk all saying, and Caught Offside all now saying that Manchester United are favourites to sign Nico Schlotterbeck. Now, why you'd want to join Manchester United ahead of Liverpool or Barcelona, I just beggars belief. I mean, that shows a real lack of ambition for me. If you want to go to a shit team like Manchester United ahead of Liverpool, I mean, to me that says I've got no ambition. Now, Schlotterbeck's contract expires in 2027, so obviously he will have only 12 months left at the end of this deal, at the end of this year, sorry. So, look, here's a possibility, I suppose, that Liverpool could say, right, January, look, Barca and Man U are likely to move from at the end of the season. Let's get in there in January, offer Borussia Dortmund 35-40 million pounds, see if they'll do business with us. Is a possibility, I suppose, especially with his contract refusal. Borussia are not going to want him to run his deal down into the final 12 months of his contract, because we all know that when players enter the last 12 months of their deals, they become less valuable because clubs just go, well, there's what I'm offering you. You don't want it. I'll wait 12 months and get him for free. So, it's a possible, I suppose, out of those names, probably the more realistic out of those names. Now, realistically, I would love to see us go and get someone like Schlotterbeck in January, and then go and get Gay in the summer. Because, look, as much as we don't know what's happening with Ibu Konate, Ibu might stay, might go, might sign a new contract, might not sign a new contract. We don't know that. Personally, I think Ibu isn't good enough to start for Liverpool. I think he's a good backup centre half. I think he makes far too many mistakes to be a starting centre back. I think he's too inconsistent as well. I think he makes a lot of mistakes, and he doesn't consistently produce an outstanding level of performance that you'd expect for a centre half for our football club. So, I think if we were to go into next season with Virgil, Gay, Schlotterbeck and Leone, you've got 4 outstanding centre halves there that could form a system. Now, there's been talk of possibly going to 3 at the back the rest of the season, or even next season. Now, if you've got Virgil van Dijk, Schlotterbeck, Gay, you've got some sort of combination of those 3, you've got 3 outstanding defenders there who are going to do a great job for you going forward. So for me personally, that would be a fantastic buy in January. Now, who it is, I don't know, in terms of who we sign, but we do need a centre back. If we come out of the January transfer window having signed no centre backs, I would say that I'd question the ambition of the club to win something this season. I think you're throwing the season away. I really do believe you are throwing the season away if you don't go and buy a centre-back in January. It's an absolute must for me. Absolute must go and get in January is that centre-back. In terms of the targets, the rest of that list, Singo is a right back. Again, I don't see him as an option at the moment. Semenyo, Rodrigo, Vitinha. Look, I too read with incredulity that ridiculous report the other day saying that Liverpool could swap Rodrigo for Wirtz. I think that's a load of bollocks. Absolute load of bollocks. Florian Wirtz will come good. He's too good a player not to. So let's write that one off. I'd take Rodrigo in January. I'd take Rodrigo at the end of the season to back up Cody or to be a starter ahead of Cody. Certainly. Vitinha, Vitinha's a good, don't get me wrong, Vitinha's a very good footballer, but he's already played in the Premier League. I don't think he would handle the physicality of the Premier League. And he's another one like Wirtz who's going to take a long time to settle in. So I wouldn't personally, and who does he come in for? Maka, Grav, Sobo, Curtis, who are you replacing there? To me, he doesn't make the team. So I don't see that as a buy. Antoine Semenyo, I think, could be a very good buy in the summer. The report that came out, and it was Indy Kalia who spread the news that he wanted to leave in January, which has now turned out to be a load of crap. He doesn't want to, obviously, but I think Bournemouth will listen to offers for him in the summer. That's the type of club Bournemouth are. They very much follow that trading model option. And if you were to go with a 75, 80 million pound bid for Semenyo in the summer, I think you stand a chance of getting him. And I think he's a player who could come in and make a real difference for Liverpool and be a quality player to play on that left-hand side. Look, nothing against Rio and Gamoa. I think Rio's a good player. I think he's an outstanding player. I think he's going to be a brilliant player. But it's obvious at the moment in time that Arne doesn't trust him, doesn't believe that he can come on and be that option, despite what Arne said at the start of the season. So I do think that we do need a left-sided player, but I think he will have to wait till the summer, and it will be probably Antoine Semenyo for me. But, as I said, I think January, as much as it is a very difficult time to buy players, we've got to buy a centre-back. If Liverpool don't buy a centre-back in the summer, I think they could be in for a very hard rest of the season. And I think also, if you go and buy a centre-back, you're automatically putting a lot of pressure on Konate and Van Dijk to keep their level of performance up. If the competition's level is there, if you go out and say we're to buy, I'm not saying we will, but if you were to go out and say buy Nico Schlotterbeck in January, then to me, you're sending a message that, you know what, Virgil, you know what, Ibu, you've got some competition now. Start perform well, or you're going to be on the bench. And World Cup year, can anybody afford to be sat on the bench? Certainly not. So, look, for me, Schlotterbeck would be a good buy. I just don't think that Bastoni or that, that's Bastoni or that Gay or that Upamecano are realistic targets in January. They're more summer targets, I believe, going forward. Right, guys, that is it for this morning. Thank you for watching the Liverpool FC Journal podcast live. If you haven't obviously caught it live and you're watching this after the fact, thank you for choosing to watch. Please smash a like. Please sub to the channel. Look, we're trying to build the channel. We're trying to get our channel up to massive standards. Our desire is to build this channel to be one of the biggest out there. I'm looking as well to start bringing people on, bring guests on, get people involved in hosting the pod as well. Thanks, guys, for watching. It's been a pleasure. Please obviously like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I will catch you on the next one.
Thank you.